In the cold expanse of space, where stars shimmered like diamonds against an endless void, the Zenari Empire reigned supreme. Its fleets stretched across galaxies, its soldiers feared by all who dared oppose them. At the heart of this empire stood Commander Valithra, known throughout the cosmos as the Iron Empress. Her name alone was enough to send shivers down the spines of rebels and kings alike. Ruthless, calculating, and unyielding, she had carved her legacy with precision, a blade cutting through resistance without hesitation or mercy. Her flagship, the Obsidian Wrath, loomed over Earth's last free colony like a dark storm cloud. The planet below was one of the few places untouched by Zenari rule, but that would soon change. Today marked the end of humanity's defiance. Valithra stood on the command deck, her crimson armor gleaming under artificial light. She watched the battle unfold on holographic displays before her, explosions lighting up the atmosphere, ships spiraling out of control as her forces overwhelmed the colony's defenses. Every move was executed flawlessly, just as she had planned. Victory was inevitable. But something unexpected caught her attention. Among the prisoners captured during the raid was a human unlike any she'd encountered before. His name was Kale, according to the identification tags retrieved from his ruined ship. Unlike the others cowering in fear or screaming defiance, he remained eerily calm. When brought before her for questioning, his piercing blue eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that unsettled even her. "Why resist?" Valithra asked, her voice cold and commanding. "Your people are finished. Surrender your secrets, and I might grant you a swift death." Kale didn't flinch. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, studying her as if she were the prisoner, not him. "You think fear gives you power," he said, his tone steady, "but it only proves how fragile your empire really is." His words struck a nerve. No one spoke to her like that, not if they valued their lives. Yet, instead of anger, Valithra felt curiosity. Who was this man? Why did he refuse to break when everyone else crumbled under her gaze? She ordered him detained in the detention bay, assigning 2 guards to watch him at all times. As the days passed, she found herself lingering near the observation deck overlooking his cell. He paced back and forth, occasionally sketching constellations on the walls with charcoal pencils she allowed him to have, small gestures meant to keep him compliant. But compliance wasn't what intrigued her. It was his quiet confidence, his refusal to bow to despair. Whispers began circulating among her crew. General Scytherin, her second-in-command and longtime rival, voiced his disapproval openly. A human prisoner, kept alive for no reason. He sneered during a private briefing. "This isn't leadership, it's weakness." Valithra silenced him with a glare, but his words lingered. Was she losing focus? Had this human somehow planted doubt in her mind? Yet, every time she looked at Cal, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to him, and perhaps to herself, than met the eye. For now, she kept him alive, telling herself it was strategic. But deep down, she knew the truth. He fascinated her in ways she couldn't explain. And fascination, in the rigid world of the Zenari Empire, was dangerous indeed. Days turned into weeks aboard the Obsidian Wrath, and Commander Valithra found herself drawn to the observation deck more often than she cared to admit. From behind the safety of tinted glass, she watched Kale move about his cell with quiet determination. He read ancient books salvaged from Earth, books he'd smuggled aboard in some desperate act of defiance, and sketched constellations on the walls using charcoal pencils she had reluctantly permitted him. The symbols were unfamiliar to her, yet they seemed to hold meaning for him. They spoke of a world far removed from the sterile corridors of her ship, a world she could never fully understand. Cal's presence gnawed at her thoughts like an unwelcome shadow. She tried to dismiss it as mere curiosity, nothing more. After all, humans were fascinating creatures, not because of their strength or technology, but because of their resilience. Even when faced with overwhelming odds, They clung to hope like drowning sailors grasping at driftwood. But there was something different about Kel. His defiance wasn't born out of blind optimism. It was rooted in conviction. And that unsettled her. One evening, unable to focus on military reports, Vaelithra decided to confront him directly. She entered the detention bay flanked by 2 guards, her crimson armor gleaming under harsh fluorescent lights. Cale looked up from his sketches, meeting her gaze without fear. "You're still alive," she said coolly, folding her arms across her chest. "Most prisoners wouldn't last this long." He smirked faintly, leaning against the wall. "Maybe I'm just better company than you think." Her jaw tightened at his insolence, but she forced herself to remain composed. "Why do you resist? Your planet is lost. Humanity will kneel before the Empire whether you cooperate or not." For a moment, Cale didn't respond. Then he stepped closer to the force field separating them, his eyes locking onto hers. "And what happens after we kneel? Do we become slaves? Or do your people wipe us out entirely?" Vaelithra hesitated, caught off guard by the question. She had always believed conquest brought order, erasing chaos and replacing it with structure. But Kel's words hinted at something darker, an emptiness lurking beneath the Empire's polished facade. Before she could reply, General Citharan appeared at the entrance, his sharp features twisted into a scowl. "Commander," he barked, ignoring Kel completely. "We need to discuss strategy, not waste time babysitting prisoners." Vaelithra shot him a glare but nodded curtly. As she left the detention bay, she couldn't shake the feeling that Kel's questions lingered in the air like smoke, unseen yet impossible to ignore. Back on the command deck, tension simmered. Citharan wasted no time voicing his disapproval. "This human is a distraction," he growled during a private meeting. "Every day he lives is another day your authority weakens. Execute him and send a message to Earth's resistance." Other officers murmured in agreement, their loyalty wavering under Citharan's influence. Vaelithra clenched her fists beneath the table, fighting back frustration. She knew he was right, at least partly. Keeping Cale alive defied logic. Yet every time she considered ending his life, doubt crept in. What if he was right about the Empire? What if her victories weren't worth the cost? That night, alone in her quarters, Vaelithra stared at the stars outside her viewport. For years, she had followed orders without question, believing in the righteousness of her cause. But now, cracks began to form in her certainty. She thought of Cal's sketches, his quiet defiance, and the way he challenged her beliefs. Perhaps the real battle wasn't happening on distant planets or in star-filled skies. Perhaps it was raging within her own mind. And for the first time in her life, Vaelithra wondered if she truly wanted to win. The days aboard the Obsidian Wrath stretched on, but Vaelithra found herself unable to focus. Every decision she made felt heavier than before, every command tinged with hesitation. Her mind kept drifting back to Kel, the way he challenged her, questioned her beliefs, and dared to see through the armor of authority she wore so proudly. It was infuriating. And yet, it intrigued her. One evening, after dismissing her officers from a tense strategy meeting, Vaelithra made an impulsive decision. She walked to the detention bay alone, leaving her guards behind for the first time. The dimly lit corridor seemed quieter than usual as she approached Cal's cell. He was seated cross-legged on the floor, sketching another constellation with his charcoal pencil. When he noticed her standing outside the force field, he raised an eyebrow in mild surprise. "No guards today?" he asked, his tone casual but laced with curiosity. "Feeling brave?" "I don't need them," Vaelithra replied sharply, though her voice lacked its usual edge. She stepped closer, studying him carefully. "You claim humanity deserves freedom. Prove it." Cale set down the pencil and stood up slowly, brushing imaginary dust off his tattered clothes. "Freedom isn't something you can prove. It's something you earn, by fighting for what matters. Something your empire wouldn't understand." Her lips tightened into a thin line. "Explain." He hesitated, then gestured toward one of the sketches on the wall, a spiral galaxy surrounded by small dots. This is my home, Earth. Every dot represents someone I care about. Family, friends, strangers who share the same sky. We aren't perfect, but we fight because we believe life has value. Your empire. You crush hope underfoot. That's not strength. It's fear dressed up as power. Velithra frowned, unsettled by how easily he dismantled her arguments. She had spent years convincing herself that conquest brought order, that fear ensured loyalty. But Kel's words planted seeds of doubt in her mind. Could there be another way? "What would you do if you were me?" she asked abruptly, surprising even herself. Kale tilted his head, considering her question. "If I were you, I'd ask myself why I follow orders without questioning them. Why I let others decide what's right or wrong. Maybe you're not as free as you think." His response struck a nerve. For a moment, silence hung between them, broken only by the faint hum of the ship's engines. Then, unexpectedly, Velithra turned away, her thoughts swirling like storm clouds. Over the next few days, their conversations became more frequent. She visited him during late-night hours when the rest of the crew was asleep, ensuring no one saw her lingering near his cell. They debated morality, leadership, and the cost of war. Sometimes their discussions grew heated, voices rising until they echoed off the metal walls. Other times, they sat in quiet contemplation, each lost in their own reflections. Through these exchanges, Velithra began to notice subtle changes in herself. Her rigid certainty softened, replaced by questions she couldn't ignore. Meanwhile, Kale started seeing glimpses of vulnerability beneath her icy exterior, a side of her he hadn't expected. Word of her frequent visits eventually reached General Cytherin. One day, as she exited the detention bay, he confronted her in the hallway. "Commander," he snapped, his golden eyes narrowing. "Rumors are spreading. Are you letting this prisoner manipulate you?" Velithra straightened, her expression hardening instantly. "My decisions require no explanation, General. Stay out of matters that don't concern you." But as she walked away, her hands trembled slightly at her sides. She knew Cytherin wouldn't let this go. Worse still, she realized she didn't entirely trust herself anymore. Was she growing weak, or was she finally waking up? For now, all she could do was keep visiting Kale, seeking answers in the forbidden conversations they shared. Each word brought clarity and chaos in equal measure. Tensions aboard the Obsidian Wrath reached a boiling point. The ship, once a symbol of Velithra's unshakable authority, now felt like a pressure cooker ready to explode. Her frequent visits to Kale had not gone unnoticed, and whispers of dissent spread among her crew like wildfire. General Cytherin seized the opportunity to fan the flames, rallying officers who questioned her judgment. To them, her leniency toward the human prisoner was proof of weakness, a flaw that could not be tolerated in someone of her rank. Velithra tried to maintain control, but cracks were beginning to show. During morning briefings, she noticed sideways glances and hushed conversations cutting off whenever she entered the room. Reports from conquered territories painted a grim picture. Earth's resistance was growing bolder, striking back with unexpected ferocity. Entire supply lines had been sabotaged, and rumors swirled about a secret weapon capable of turning the tide against the Zenari Empire. Yet none of this compared to the storm brewing within her own ranks. One day, as Velithra reviewed intelligence reports on the command deck, an urgent message came through from Emperor Zenar himself. His holographic form materialized before her, his voice cold and commanding. "Commander Velithra," he began, his golden eyes piercing even through the projection. "I have received troubling reports about your handling of the human prisoner. Explain yourself." Velithra stiffened, forcing herself to meet his gaze. "The prisoner is a valuable asset, my lord. He possesses knowledge critical to dismantling Earth's resistance." Zenar's expression darkened. "Valuable or distracting? You forget your place, Commander. Execute him immediately and focus on your duties, or I will find someone more worthy of leading my fleet." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Valithra standing frozen in silence. Her mind raced. If she followed orders, Kale would die, and with him, any chance of understanding the truths he had shown her. But defying Zinar meant risking everything: her position, her life, and perhaps the lives of those loyal to her. Before she could decide, chaos erupted elsewhere on the ship. Alarms blared as Scytheron led a group of mutineers in seizing control of key sections of the Obsidian Wrath. They'd barricaded themselves in engineering, threatening to disable the ship unless Valithra surrendered command. Kale heard the commotion from his cell and pieced together what was happening. When Valithra arrived at the detention bay, her face pale but resolute, he didn't waste time. "You need me," he said bluntly. "I know how they think. Let me help you retake the ship." For a moment, Valithra hesitated. Trusting a human prisoner went against every instinct she had honed over decades of service, but desperation outweighed pride. With a curt nod, she deactivated the force field and handed him a sidearm. "Betray me, and I'll kill you myself." Together, they devised a plan. Using Cal's knowledge of human tactics, they coordinated a surprise assault on the mutineers. Disguised as maintenance personnel, they infiltrated engineering while loyal officers created diversions elsewhere on the ship. The battle was fierce. Blaster fire lit up the narrow corridors, and shouts echoed through the metallic halls. But Valithra's determination never wavered. Side by side with Kale, she fought her way to Scytheron, confronting him in the heart of the engine room. "You're a disgrace to the Empire," Scytheron snarled, raising his weapon. But before he could fire, Kale disarmed him with a swift move, leaving him vulnerable. Valithra stepped forward, her blade pressed against Scytheron's throat. "This is my ship," she growled, "and my empire. Choose your next words carefully." Scytheron sneered but said nothing. Moments later, reinforcements loyal to Valithra subdued the remaining mutineers, restoring order to the Obsidian Wrath. As the dust settled, Valithra turned to Kale, her chest heaving from exertion. "You saved me," she admitted reluctantly. "Why?" Kale shrugged, though his eyes softened. "Because you gave me a chance when no one else would. And maybe because I believe in you more than you believe in yourself right now." Her jaw tightened, but she couldn't deny the truth in his words. For the first time, she realized that leadership wasn't just about commanding legions. It was about earning trust. And Kale had earned hers. Yet, as she stared at the stars outside the viewport, she knew their victory was temporary. Zinar's ultimatum still loomed over her head, and Earth's resistance awaited its next move. Whatever path lay ahead, one thing was certain: Valithra would never be the same again. With the mutiny quelled and Scytheron imprisoned in the detention bay he once sought to control, a fragile calm settled over the Obsidian Wrath. Yet, for Valithra, the storm within her raged on. The Emperor's ultimatum hung heavy in her mind like a ticking countdown. Cal's life was tied to an impossible choice: follow orders and betray everything she had begun to question, or defy Zinar and risk destroying not only herself, but everyone loyal to her. In the days that followed, Cal noticed a change in her demeanor. Gone was the cold, calculating commander who had first interrogated him. Instead, there was a woman burdened by doubt, struggling to reconcile duty with morality. He saw it in the way she lingered near his cell less frequently now, as if afraid of what others might think, or perhaps what she might feel. Still, their bond deepened during stolen moments when they worked together planning strategies against Earth's resistance. One evening, after dismissing her officers from another tense briefing, Valithra found herself standing outside Cal's quarters, the same room she had reluctantly assigned him after the mutiny. She hesitated before entering, unsure why she kept seeking him out. When she finally stepped inside, Cal looked up from a book he'd been reading. His expression softened at the sight of her. "You look tired," he said simply, closing the book and setting it aside. "So do you," she replied, leaning against the wall. Her crimson armor gleamed faintly under the dim light, but her usual air of authority seemed muted tonight. "I've been thinking about Sinar's orders." Kale nodded, sensing where this was going. And I can't obey them." The words came out quietly, almost reluctantly. "But disobeying means risking everything. My crew, my ship, everything I've built." Kale stood up slowly, meeting her gaze. "Then don't think about what you're losing. Think about what you're fighting for. Is it worth it? Does your empire deserve your loyalty?" Her silence spoke volumes. For years, she had believed the Zenari Empire stood for order, progress, and unity. But Kel's questions, and her growing doubts, had shattered that illusion. What kind of empire built its power on fear and oppression? What kind of leader enforced such cruelty without question? "I never thought I'd say this," Valithra admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But maybe the empire isn't worth saving." Kale didn't respond immediately. Instead, he crossed the small space between them, stopping just close enough to make her heart race. "If that's true, then maybe it's time to choose a new side. Not mine, not humanity's. Yours." His words struck a chord deep within her. For so long, she had defined herself by her role in the empire, believing it gave her purpose. But Kale made her see that purpose wasn't something handed down. It was something earned, something chosen. Over the next few days, their alliance grew stronger. Valithra allowed Cal limited access to classified files, hoping his insight into Earth's tactics could help them anticipate the Resistance's next move. In return, Cal shared fragments of his own world, stories of laughter, love, and resilience that painted a picture of humanity far richer than anything she had imagined. Late-night conversations turned into moments of quiet laughter. Shared meals became opportunities to learn about each other's worlds. Their connection transcended captor and prisoner. It became something neither of them could ignore. Yet danger loomed closer with each passing day. News arrived of Emperor Zinar dispatching a fleet to investigate the mutiny aboard the Obsidian Wrath Asterisk. Worse still, intelligence confirmed Earth's resistance was preparing to strike back harder than ever before. Time was running out. Valithra knew she couldn't delay any longer. Summoning Kale to the command deck, she laid out a daring plan. "We fake your death," she explained, her voice steadied despite the weight of her decision. "Stage an accident, leak false reports to Zinar. Then we go rogue, together." Kale stared at her, stunned. "You'd throw away everything for me?" "No," she said firmly, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of emotion. "I'm throwing it away for us, for a future where people aren't ruled by fear." As they finalized their plans, Valithra felt a strange sense of clarity wash over her. For the first time, she wasn't acting out of duty or obligation. She was choosing her path, and Cal would walk it beside her. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The plan was set into motion under the cover of darkness. Valithra ordered a controlled explosion in one of the ship's lower decks, timed to coincide with a routine systems check. The resulting chaos would serve as the perfect distraction, a catastrophic accident that could plausibly claim Cal's life. To ensure credibility, she leaked falsified reports to Zinar's fleet, detailing how an unstable reactor core had led to the prisoner's demise. But even the most meticulous plans carried risks, and this one felt like walking a razor's edge. As flames licked at the damaged corridors, and alarms blared throughout the Obsidian Wrath Asterisk, Valithra fought to maintain her composure. Her crew scrambled to contain the damage, unaware of the deeper deception unfolding around them. Only a handful of trusted officers were privy to the truth, and even they hesitated, their loyalty tested by fear of what awaited them if they failed. Kale waited in the shadows of the cargo bay, his heart pounding as he watched the chaos unfold on surveillance monitors. He knew the stakes. Failure meant death, not just for him, but for everyone involved. Yet, despite the danger, he couldn't shake the feeling that Valithra's decision went beyond strategy. She wasn't just saving him, she was saving herself. When the signal came, Kale slipped through the labyrinthine passages of the ship, avoiding patrols and sticking to maintenance tunnels. Every step brought him closer to freedom and further from the life he'd always known. By the time he reached the rendezvous point, Valithra was already there, waiting with 2 stolen escape pods prepped for launch. "You ready?" she asked, her voice calm but laced with tension. "As ready as I'll ever be," Kale replied, climbing into one of the pods. "What about you? Are you sure you want to do this?" Valithra hesitated for a moment, her crimson armor glinting faintly in the dim light. Then she nodded, her expression hardening with resolve. There's no turning back now. They launched moments later, ejecting from the Obsidian Wrath just as Zinar's fleet arrived on the horizon. From the safety of their pods, they watched as their former flagship was boarded and searched. It wouldn't take long for the Emperor's forces to realize the truth, that Valithra had betrayed the Empire, faking Kal's death to go rogue. But by then, they would be far away, hidden among the stars. Their journey wasn't without peril. Pursued by Zinari warships, they narrowly avoided capture multiple times, relying on Kal's knowledge of human tactics and Valithra's unparalleled piloting skills to stay ahead. Exhaustion weighed heavily on both of them, but neither dared to slow down. They had made their choice, and there was no room for second-guessing. Amid the chaos, their bond deepened. Conversations during brief respites revealed vulnerabilities neither had shown before. Kale spoke of Earth, the vibrant colors of its sunsets, the warmth of family dinners, the hope that kept humanity fighting against overwhelming odds. Valithra shared fragments of her own past, the pressures of rising through the ranks, the loneliness of leadership, and the emptiness she had tried to fill with conquest. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a different future, one where power didn't come at the cost of compassion. Yet betrayal loomed large. Zitharin, still imprisoned aboard the Obsidian Wrath managed to smuggle intel to Zinar, exposing not only their escape, but also the existence of Earth's secret weapon. News spread quickly. The Resistance planned to strike the Zinari homeworld itself, using a prototype device capable of destabilizing planetary cores. If deployed, it would mean annihilation on a scale never seen before. Kale confronted Valithra the moment they received the transmission. "We have to stop it," he insisted, his voice trembling with urgency. "This isn't victory, it's genocide." Valithra clenched her fists, torn between duty and morality yet again. Stopping the weapon meant risking everything, including their fragile alliance with Earth's resistance. But letting it happen would make them no better than the empire they sought to overthrow. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "Then we stop it, together." And so, with Zinari forces closing in and Earth's resistance preparing its final assault, Valithra and Kale prepared for their greatest challenge yet. Not as enemies or fugitives, but as partners united by a shared vision of a better galaxy. Whatever sacrifices lay ahead, they faced them side by side, knowing the road to redemption was paved with difficult choices. The final battle unfolded across the vast expanse of space, a chaotic symphony of explosions, streaking starships, and desperate cries for survival. Valithra and Kale joined forces with Earth's resistance aboard a stolen cruiser, their presence sparking both hope and suspicion among the human fighters. To many, Valithra was still the face of the empire they despised, a symbol of oppression and cruelty. But Kale vouched for her, explaining how she had defied Zinar, faked his death, and sacrificed everything to fight alongside them. Slowly, reluctantly, the resistance began to trust her, not because she asked for it, but because her actions spoke louder than words. Together, they devised a daring plan to infiltrate the Zinari homeworld and disable the prototype weapon before it could be used against humanity. The mission was fraught with danger. Every step carried the risk of discovery or betrayal. Yet, as they prepared to launch their assault, Valithra felt an unfamiliar sense of purpose. For years, she had fought for conquest and control. Now she fought for something greater: freedom, justice, and the chance to right the wrongs of her past. The infiltration team moved swiftly under cover of darkness, using stolen uniforms and forged credentials to bypass heavily guarded checkpoints. Kale led the way, his knowledge of human tactics blending seamlessly with Valithra's expertise in Zenari protocols. Their partnership was a delicate balance of trust and tension, each decision weighing heavily on their shoulders. When they reached the central chamber housing the weapon's core, time seemed to slow. The massive machine pulsed with ominous energy, its design both beautiful and terrifying. "This is it," Kale whispered, his voice tight with urgency. "If we shut this down, we stop the Empire's plans. But if we fail—" Valithra trailed off, glancing at the armed guards stationed around the room. Her hand tightened around the hilt of her blade. "We won't get another chance." They struck without hesitation, taking out the guards in a flurry of precise movements. As Kel worked to disable the weapon systems, Valithra held off reinforcements, her crimson armor gleaming like fire in the dim light. Blaster bolts ricocheted off walls, and alarms blared throughout the facility, but she refused to falter. Every strike, every parry, was fueled by determination and guilt. She wasn't just fighting for victory, she was fighting for redemption. Finally, Kale gave a triumphant shout. "It's done. The core is destabilized." But their relief was short-lived. Emperor Zenar himself appeared, flanked by elite warriors, his golden eyes blazing with fury. "You dare betray me?" he roared, raising his weapon. "Then you will die as traitors." The ensuing battle was brutal, a clash of wills and weapons that shook the very foundations of the chamber. Outnumbered and outgunned, Valithra and Kale fought side by side, their bond stronger than ever. In the end, it was Valithra who faced Zenar alone, her blade meeting his in a final decisive duel. With one swift motion, she struck him down, ending his reign of terror once and for all. As the dust settled, the resistance celebrated their hard-won victory. Humanity rejoiced, and the galaxy began to heal from decades of oppression. Valithra stood beside Kale on the bridge of their ship, gazing out at the stars. No longer bound by duty or fear, she finally understood what true strength meant. Not domination, but inspiration. For the first time in her life, Valithra felt free. And as she looked at Kale, she knew she wasn't alone. Together, they had forged a new path, one filled with hope, courage, and endless possibilities. The galaxy awaited them, and they were ready.